everyone, here's a quick video on how to get smooth icing and sharp corners on my cakes. I use a bit of hot glue to attach the cake board to a sheet of plexiglass on all my cakes, but this is not necessary. I bake my cakes in 3 layers, which allows me not to have to worry about torting my cakes. I freeze them overnight, and I go straight into filling and stacking my cakes. I'm putting a thin layer of buttercream and creating a dam. This cake will have a custard filling. Be sure not to fill it up too full, just enough to fill up the dam. Otherwise your cake could slide when it comes to room temperature, and we don't want that to happen. Go ahead with the next layer of cake and continue to do this using your bench scraper to ensure that your cake is straight on each side as you go up. That could be used as well if you're doing a 4-layer or 5-layer cake. It doesn't matter. I use my bench scraper as a guide for everything. Another layer of filling is going in. If you're not using buttercream, or if you're not using filling, you can use straight buttercream and go ahead and just fill it as you would without the filling. Put your last layer of cake on top. This one I put on upside down so that I get that nice smooth base to ice on. That will help me get those nice sharp corners. Using my bench scraper again to ensure that there's no large gaps or slants happening. I'm using this first layer of icing as a crumb coat. You can apply this using a piping bag. I find that it takes too much time filling piping bags and piping it onto the cake versus just putting the icing on the cake and going ahead and spreading it out. You pick which way you want to do it. This way works best for me. So continue to smooth the cake out, working with your icing in a fast manner, not a rushed manner, to ensure that the icing doesn't set as your cake is still very cold. So to continue going around the cake, scraping off the excess icing and filling up all those holes. As you can see, I'm filling up the little spots. Once you start scraping your cake, you will notice the little holes, and just keep scraping it with your bench scraper around and around. Sometimes when you have too much icing on the top of your cake, it will actually affect the way it scrapes, but we won't worry about that right now. We're just going to scrape this part of it off to get a nice smooth top. This is going in the fridge for another 20 minutes. We're going to apply another layer of buttercream. Same thing, you want to work quickly here, making sure that the icing doesn't set. Sometimes I've put the icing on the top of the cake and walked away from it for a bit, only to find it solid, having to scrape it off and start again. So quickly work with your buttercream, put a nice thick layer on this time, trying to cover up all the excess holes as you go. This process will probably take you a while until you get the hang of doing it. I just keep scraping my cake, filling up the holes as I go. You'll see along the top there, I want to get my corners nice and sharp, so I'm going to push the buttercream out the edges of the cake, and then I'm going to use the bench scraper to push that icing on top of the cake. And you want to keep doing that until all those edges are nice and full. Sometimes if I'm having buttercream with a little bit of bubbles, I whip it. I guess I wouldn't whip it, I would use the big paddle on my mixer and let it run for about 20 minutes to get most of the air bubbles out. But sometimes they don't all come out. So I just keep doing this until it's nice and smooth. I do not use a hot bench scraper. This is an all buttercream recipe, and using a hot bench scraper will discolor your buttercream, causing it to turn a little bit yellow, and we don't want that. So back in the fridge for another 20 minutes. Now we're going to use a knife to scrape off that top that we left on the cake. This will get you nice crisp corners. So use your knife, cut it off nice and smooth, scrape off the excess. You can see I put a little bit too much buttercream than what I needed this time around, but that's okay. There's a few holes that I'm filling up with the rest of my buttercream. I'm making a nice smooth top as the last piece of steps, the last step to do for this cake. Now scrape off your sides again, getting all that extra icing off. And always make sure that you're swiping outside in from your cake, because when you're sweeping from the inside out, it could break your cake. And there you have it. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day.